I will try to get some more details for sure. That was going to be one of my first questions for Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino. One of the big announceables today was Roxham Road and the closing of it at 12:01 a.m. Can you give us any more specifics that we may not know about that at this point?
Well, first, great to be here on this historic occasion, a visit from President Biden to celebrate the unique and enduring allyship and friendship between Canada and the United States, where we talked about growth for middle-class jobs, protecting the environment, and yes, touching on a number of important security issues, including the fulfillment of a long-standing promise to modernize the Safe Third Country Agreement, which will now apply right across the border. It will also promote humanitarian pathways, as well as discouraging irregular migration, which can be very risky and dangerous to those who are making the journey from their home country. So we will work closely with our line agencies, including the CBSA and the RCMP. As you point out, that is taking effect tonight at 12:01 a.m. And we will also work very closely with human rights groups and immigration groups and asylum seeker groups so that we can protect the rights of those who have been vulnerably displaced.
Is there a concern that if it's not there, it will be somewhere else across the country?
Well, indeed, that's one of the reasons why this modernization is so important, which is to take a consistent approach in the way that we both promote lawful and admissible migration pathways for asylum seekers, but also to discourage irregular migration. And that's precisely what this new modernized agreement will do. We have worked very closely with the RCMP and the CBSA, as well as provincial police services, to make sure that we are coordinated, but we also want to protect the human rights of asylum seekers. You heard both the President and the Prime Minister talk about how refugees and asylum seeking rights protection is in keeping with the long-standing traditions of both of our countries. That will continue in this new agreement as well.
Yeah, so if we look down the road to this new agreement, can you give us a sense of what might change? What will look different?
Well, certainly we hope to see less risk to those who are making the journey and who are seeking legitimate asylum-seeking claims. And by taking this new approach that is consistent not only at official ports of entry but in between ports of entry, we hope to discourage some of that riskier voyaging and instead promote more lawful pathways. And that is indeed connected to the Safe Third Country Agreement modernization. We're going to work very closely with the United States to emphasize the shared hemispheric responsibility that Canada and the United States have when it comes to migration, which is a global challenge.
You were sitting in there for the whole speech. What really stood out for you when you're sitting there, you know, as a cabinet minister, as an MP, as a Canadian?
I would say, well, three things. One,
not just one. I have three.
I've got three things that struck me in the speech. One is not only the fact that we're close as two countries, but the personal friendship between the President and the Prime Minister, and they spoke about that. Obviously, second, the presence of the two Michaels there at a time when geopolitically there's so much going on, and to be able to have them and their spouses and their partners with them.
That was such a nice moment.
It was moving, and I think that they got the most number of standing ovations because they are the embodiment of that perseverance that the Prime Minister spoke of. And that is precisely what all democracies have to be in the face of the challenges that we are together confronting, which is to persevere and to anchor ourselves in our democratic principles. And they obviously, them being there was an inspiration. And the third thing was, it was the only moment in the President's speech that I took a little bit of umbrage with, which was his dig at the Leafs.
Oh,
I think that was a lighthearted moment, but aside from that,
Doesn't
it was...
everybody make a dig at the Leafs?
You know, I've got to stay true to my hometown, but aside from that, it was an A-class performance from both the Prime Minister and the President, and obviously a very historic day.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Hannah, can I throw one question through you to the Minister?
Will do.
Yeah, can he tell us what will the border look like tonight? If someone's trying to cross that border tonight, what happens? What does it look like? Yeah.
Okay,
thanks.
Rosie has a question for you, and it's a very good question. So she was asking, you know, they shut the border down at 12:01 a.m. tonight. What will that border look like tonight?
Well, first, as I said, we're working very closely with the RCMP and the CBSA to be sure that we manage the new era of the agreement, and that is something that we have been consistently coordinating.
They get turned around, though.
That's one of the new rules, and the application of the agreement is that there will be a consistent application of the STCA both at official ports of entry as well as in between ports of entry, and then we will continue to map out the next steps of this closely with the United States.
Is there a concern there might be a run on the border before 12:01 a.m.?
I think that's a fair question. That's one of the reasons why we are applying it so close to the announcement, which is to reduce the risk of there being a potential rush at the border. We're going to work closely with human rights advocates, with refugee advocates, to make sure that they have all of the information that they need so that individuals who are lawfully seeking asylum in Canada understand their rights, but also to make sure that we are discouraging those who may not be here for the purposes of making an asylum claim. And that is one of the things that we talked about today. You heard from both the Prime Minister and the President, which is promoting humanitarian values through legitimate pathways. We are going to connect that work with the modernization of the STCA, but also discouraging irregular migration, which poses risks to those involved.
Did the Americans say, oh, there might be a concern from their side that there will be all these people potentially spun around tonight?
I think Canada and the United States have a mutual interest in promoting as much information as possible, working closely across the border with law enforcement communities, with refugee advocates, and that is precisely what we are doing. We want to make sure that those who have a legitimate claim in Canada are able to fully exercise their rights in a way that is safe and secure and that promotes the integrity of our immigration and refugee system. And by modernizing the Safe Third Country Agreement, we have fulfilled a commitment, and going forward together, Canada and the United States will address this shared hemispheric responsibility together.
Okay.